Okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
All set.
Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of the Garland Gab. And last time we dissected and gave like an overview and introduction of Judy's film career. So this week we are going to go straight to the beginning of her feature films. And we are going to discuss in depth the movies Pigskin Parade and Broadway Melody of 1938. And as always, we have our panel. So from Ontario, Canada, we have Carly Jade. Hello.
Hello.
And from Waterford Islands, we've got Connor Grant.
Hello.
And as always, you've got me. You're stuck with me. So we'll start off with Pigskin Parade. And before we dive into that, I'll just give a little bit of a background. That just prior to this, Judy had done every Sunday. Well, she's done a number of shorts, but after she signed for MGM, she did every Sunday with Deanna Dearborn. And the studio had to decide which one of the two teenagers to keep. And we did discuss that in the last podcast, so I won't delve too deep into that. But Deanna was then was let go and signed to Universal, and she made three smart girls. So at the beginning, I can't talk already. 3 smart girls for producer Joe Pasternak, and she became a big star. And so for a short while, both Judy and Louis B. Mayer kind of regretted this, although we're glad to say not for long. So MGM didn't quite know what to do with Judy in the very beginning. So as kind of a test, they loaned it out to 20th Century Fox, who has written a role in their movie Pigskin Parade. So Pigskin Parade is, I'll give a brief overview of the plot and then I'll shut up talking because I'm the boring one. Centers around Texas State University football team. They are mistakenly invited to play a game against Yale University, who mistake them for the University of Texas. And then trouble arises when Patsy Kelly's character, Bessie, who is married to Jack Haley's character, I've just forgot his name. I just had it in my head. Can you remember his name, anyone?
Mr. Winters.
Is it Mr. Winters? He's got, yeah, well, his character, is it Winters? Before, but it's not in my notes. Well, he's the new Spot. Slug Spot. He is their new coach, but really the woman is actually the brains behind the football team, as you find out when you watch. But she accidentally breaks the leg of their quarterback, their star quarterback. So they need to find a replacement. And somewhere in the middle of the sticks, they come upon a little girl called Sari Dodd, whose brother is hurling melons to her, which she catches in the net, and he hurls the melons just like he would pitch a football. And then they go on, play this game. They're losing. Then Slug gets knocked out, so Bessie takes over because she's the brains. I love this woman power thing going on, and she encourages him to take his shoes off, like he had done when he was hauling melons. It's not the most articulate overview, this, is it? And then they win. And then they all sing. And Judy is slotted in there somewhere, which we will get to in a moment. So we will start. As I've just said, Judy is introduced when they are in the sticks. They've gone to visit somebody else who they wait overnight for and couldn't find. And they stop upon this patch. And Judy stops in the car, and the first thing out of her mouth is,
"Y'all stop for melons?"
Y'all stop for melons?
Thank you.
Can I just say how incredible her melon catching skills are? Like, if that is her actually doing that, which I'm pretty sure it is, because if you see how seamless the take is when Amos throws it and it's landing in the net and you do see her, it seems like it's her, but damn, she's
that was
good.
my thought as well when I was rewatching it. I was like, is she catching those? Because if she is, like, fair play.
Is there anything that woman can't do? I mean, seriously.
It must be her because it's like it's a long shot, isn't it? You see the whole of it. There's no sort of trickery.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's interesting seeing her in that very first role. The first thought that goes through my head is how absolutely adorable this child is. She is so cute and completely takes over the scene too. And obviously that's very prominent going forward in her career. She steals the scene in anything that she's in. But even as this, she was 14 when she did that, right? Yeah. Even as a 14-year-old, she's overpowering. Patsy Kelly. I'm brain frogging on the guy who played Amos.
Stuart Irwin.
Thank you.
It's she's adorable in it. She really is. The first time I ever saw a picture of her in this scene, well before I ever saw the film, I was like, oh, okay, there she was. That was her first appearance on, in a feature film or whatever. But yeah, there's so many foreshadowings, isn't there, kind of in it? Like she's in pigtails and a gingham dress, and the accent is very reminiscent of would have been Annie Oakley.
In fact, there's reports that when she was filming Annie Get Your Gun, she was again horrified to see herself with no makeup, freckles, pigtails, as she did when she first saw this film, but we'll get to that shortly.
When you see the outtakes from Annie Get Your Gun, specifically doing What Comes Naturally, because you hear more of her speaking role in that clip, right? And it always reminded me of Sari Dodd.
Yeah, I found these are definitely foreshadowing to us, as there always is with the gingham, the pigtails, and the fact that Tin Man Jack Haley is not in this scene, but he's in the film. She was Fox wrote her into this, and they originally had her character a little bit more bratty, bitchy. I just found out today, and they toned it down to make it a little bit nicer. And they were planning on making a sequel actually, so they must have been impressed. But originally, like when I found out, that she was kind of written in, and then a character doesn't seem to be vital to the film because, she's just a small part. It's a first role. It could have got along without her character, but at the same time, looking at it again, when I watched it again the other night, I had some revelations going on that I'd never seen before. She is quite vital. She is the motivation behind Amos actually joining this football team. She's the main character's sister, and it's funny because she's not in it for about like over half an hour, and neither's the main character, the protagonist, which is quite funny. But no, she is like the driving force behind him.
Oh, definitely. And like, in one sense, it's kind of obvious that she's just been maybe added in a little bit, but like you're right, she does contribute to the plot and she's behind it, but the musical numbers are definitely sort of just plopped in there, but what a treat to have them.
It would have been a whole different film, I think, if they have kept her character as this bratty, bitchy little child, right? Like, she definitely wouldn't have been as lovable. I do want to pull up something from John Fricke's A Legendary Film Career. Sorry, I'm just going to pull out my little book here. The character was originally named Judy, so it would be Judy Dodd. And her singular character trait was frustration. Why won't somebody listen to me sing? I like how they changed that to, y'all want to hear me? Like, it's way more, it's way cheerier than that. The edgy quality was scripted to the extent that the character at one point threatened to pull her brother from the TSU team unless she was permitted to perform on the train platform as the football players departed for Yale. So I think that would have completely changed her character and instead made her very unlikable on screen. And considering that was her very first role, that's how the world is being introduced to this talented young lady. I think that would have really changed the way that she was perceived on screen. That's for sure.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. She's adorable in this film. Like, she's lovable. She's so lovable in this film. And again, the same as Sarah, when I was rewatching it, for anybody watching, and you've noticed I'm in a different background, I've moved house along the way. So literally today I had a chance to have a look at Pigskin Parade and Broadway Melody of 1938. And that was my first thought watching it after quite a long time was, my goodness, she really is very charming and adorable in this.
She is, and she's so funny too. I don't know if you guys caught this, or maybe I'm perceiving it a different way, but remember when Amos changes his name and then Sari says, well, she better change her name too, and she changes it to Murine because she saw it off in a bottle.
Yeah.
Okay, Murine is an earwax removal medicine.
Oh, I never knew that.
I thought it was a drink. I thought it was a bottle of drink, of liquor of some sort that she'd seen in the shop. But yeah, I didn't get the joke.
It's an earwax removal medicine. And her line throughout the whole film is, y'all want to hear me?
Penny drop.
Yeah, that's a really, really good bit of close textual analysis there, Carly. Really good. But talking about that scene, well, that what you've just mentioned and how she ended up being presented by Fox actually leads me nicely into the next section, which after Judy's initial two scenes, obviously she's found that they're found there, and then they travel up to the college, and it's a similar thing where he's throwing the ball and she's just asking to be heard to sing. There's a very cute scene where he whispers in her ear, asking to take his shoes off, and it's the way she says, Amos just wants to know if it's all right if he takes his shoes off.
Amos wants to know if it's all right if he takes off his shoes.
Tell him he can take off anything he wants.
I've got pigtails and everything. But then the next non-musical scene is when basically they've had to, there's another character who's a bit of a Marxist, and they work to get him arrested for breaking a window, so Amos can't take his identity so he can join the college because he doesn't have the qualifications for the college. So he becomes someone Van Dyke. What's the first name?
Herbert, was it?
Yeah.
Herbert Van Dyke. And so he meets up with Sari Dodd, and they both had a little bit of a makeover. I've got a few things to say about this, but again, I'm going to open it up to you about this scene.
I think we'll be talking about this because I actually have something else to say on this topic of like the way she's presented and the clothes when we get to the next one.
You can say here if you want, because I'm going to waffle on about that in a minute.
Okay.
In this scene.
It's very different the way Fox presented her to the way MGM presented her in the next film. Yes. And I'll admit, before watching these two films again, I'd seen Broadway Melody more than Pigskin Parade. I thought I preferred Broadway Melody. And I told you I've just had a revelation. Neither of them are on the top of my list of what I'll watch a lot. But I much prefer Pigskin Parade now for so many things I've just discovered about it. It's not the most amazing film, but it's, it's fun. But Judy is presented, she's got a bit of makeup on here, but I don't think she's got much, if any. No.
She's wearing a sweater with a high belt,
yeah,
and a nice little pencil skirt. Now, they're the kinds of costumes that teenage actresses would be placed in. Lana Turner made it famous, even though it was a little bit disgusting now, because she was only, 15, 16. So now it's a little bit wrong. Judy looks amazing, because she's got that great curvy figure, despite what they says about her. But she's a 14-year-old girl playing a 14-year-old girl. She's playing a teenager. She's presented as a teenager. Fast forward this to MGM, where they're putting in frills and ruffled necks and whatever else, often high necks as well, unless she was wearing like an off-the-shoulder frilly dress. And it's not just in this scene, it's again with the Balboa, which I think you're going to come to, Connor. she's just, it's perfect for a waist. They always like try to disguise the fact she has a short waist, but she just looks perfect here. She's not presented as glamorous like Betty Grable, but it doesn't matter. She is a teenage girl. She could have played a romantic lead at that point, which like MGM wouldn't let her because they thought she was too much of an ugly duckling. So I've been theorising in my head since then, like, obviously we're glad Judy was at MGM because we wouldn't have the Wizards of Oz, Easter Parade, Pirate, Meet Me in St. Louis, everything. But how she would have been presented if she'd have stayed at Fox? Because not once, there's the story, she was horrified when she saw herself with no makeup on. We'll discuss that later when we discuss kind of like the my brain fog's on form today. What do you call it?
The legacy.
Legacy, that's it. Where was I?
Horrified about seeing herself with no makeup.
Yeah, well, we'll discuss that in a bit. But, you know, I just keep thinking, I wonder how would she have, the way Deanna David was presented at Universal, because originally Judy was wanted for that role, would she have been presented a little bit more like that?
Well, I think she probably would have been able to explore a bit more the depths of her talent. Like, she wouldn't have been typecast as the girl next door and then stuck as the girl next door until she's 28 years old. I feel like perhaps she may have had a little bit more of a voice because MGM was always so focused on being squeaky clean and, to quote Connor, syrupy sweet. Whereas, you know, and that was their image, and that's how they sort of differentiated themselves from the other studios. So I think it would have been very interesting had Judy been signed with Fox over MGM. I mean, everything happens for a reason. She was meant to be signed with MGM. She was meant to do The Wizard of Oz. But it is a very interesting thing to speculate on.
Yeah,
I think it was probably a challenge or something for MGM in a way, because they had kind of set themselves up as being the presenters of the most glamorous sort of ladies and actresses and everything. And they were almost like the Ziegfeld of the movie industry when they sort of started. What was it Ziegfeld did? Glorifying the American woman sort of a thing, with the Norma Shearers and the Greta Garbos and all those at MGM. And then they really, it's so clear, MGM didn't know, what do we do with her? She's talented, but what do we do? Whereas Fox seemed to have a bit more of an idea of how to, you know, put her into films at that age and what to do with her.
So Fox seemed to just let her be herself, really.
Yeah.
Basically let her be a teenage girl, not, you know, a baby-fied teenage girl, which when we get to Broadway Melody, I'll discuss a bit more. But I think it was right to being at MGM for her talent, because they did make the best musicals. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, so God. That was fate.
I mean, there wouldn't be, she wouldn't have had Arthur Freed, she wouldn't have had Roger Edens, she wouldn't have had all these other people that contributed to her legacy either, you know.
What I would have liked is for her sort of signs with MGM, not being so treated like she was for her image and everything else, but being, and we've discussed this before, being allowed to go out on loan every so often. But I mean, I was going to save this to later, but MGM never loaned it out again after this, but we'll discuss why in a minute. But yeah, maybe if there's a letter. I know she requested to a few times and they were like, nope.
But that's the problem with that studio system of that time. Like, they owned you lock, stock and barrel on those 7-year contracts. Whereas today, actors will just go from project to project, irregardless of the studio. You know, it's the project itself attracts somebody today. Whereas then it was, well, we have you on the payroll now, off you go and make us another film there, kind of a thing.
Can you imagine the body of work that she would have done had she been allowed to do the projects that she wanted to do? If she could have done more dramas, if she could have done A Star Is Born in 1942 like she wanted, whoa, that would have been
Fox done it, I bet you.
Yep, I think they would have let her.
Or Warner's, you know, because they were that kind of drama.
Yeah.
Well, look, Deanna David was a girl next door as well, but she was able to make Christmas Holiday with Gene Kelly, who was also the All-American guy. because I love Jean, as you know. I went to call you Judy then, Carly. It's because you look like her. I'm sure you don't mind that, do you?
Oh, not at all.
But I don't think he was anywhere near as good an actor as Judy. But he did so many more dramatic roles.
Can you imagine Judy with Jean doing Christmas Holiday? I mean, come on.
Yes, definitely. Anything else regarding that before we move on?
No, it's just, you touched on it. There I am. No, just you said it, and maybe we will hold it till the Broadway Melody, but because I've watched the two. I have only rewatched Judy scenes, but I did watch them back to back, and the thing that struck me is, and I won't say it maybe, but her introduction in Broadway Melody and the way she's presented is so different. I know her character in Pigskin Parade is kind of the hillbilly sort of a hick, but like she's adorable in it, and like when she's had her makeover, it's very different. That's it.
One more thing before I move on to the musical numbers is I was talking to John Fricke, and he's mentioned it to us before. He's made an interesting observation. Carly slightly disagrees with John Fricke, just as everyone's got a different opinion. Everyone finds Judy adorable, beautiful at different times. He thinks It's Love I'm After was filmed first, and I think it would be two because I will mention this when we discuss that song. I know the actors did break out into applause after she filmed it, so that'd make more sense, because it'd be like, whoa, the first time hearing her sing. And she's not wearing any makeup at all. She's also not wearing it, obviously, in her, hillbilly scene. Then she's wearing a little bit more in Texas Tornado, and I think a little bit in the scene we've discussed, but I can't make it out. But she's wearing it in the Balboa, and she looks so pretty. But I know, Carly, you find her really pretty, and It's Love I'm After, don't you?
I do. So the one thing that really stood out to me with that is the close-ups that they do in It's Love I'm After. I was just so enthralled by her and how different she looked, because there's no makeup on, and we're so used to seeing how MGM had caked on the makeup, completely got rid of her freckles, put the nose discs, and capped her teeth, and you don't see any of that. You are seeing Frances Gumm in that number, and just how naturally beautiful she was, and the freckles make it. I love those freckles, and it just makes her even more unique, and her beauty even more unique, and that really struck me as well when I watched that.
I'm partial to the freckles as well. Joan Crawford and Doris Day also has a lot of freckles.
Yeah.
And there's a photo of Joan Crawford. She's still dressed up, but you can see her freckles. And I think it's the most gorgeous photograph of her, much better than the ones where she's all, the George Harrell ones where she looks all contoured and everything. And then Doris Day looked adorable with her freckles as well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The other thing too I did want to mention is the way that her mouth moves when she's singing, when she doesn't have the teeth caps in. It just seems more natural, I guess. And you can, especially in those close-ups, you see that, and you can feel that voice escaping her lips. You can see her tongue like practically vibrating. And I don't know, there's something so natural about the way that she's presented in that number, and it seems to me that Fox could see her beauty, and you can feel that in those close-ups.
That you saw this in a later concert years, but she does that dropping of the jaw and the tongue, which is a technique that singers are advised to use. Not that I know, because I don't sing, but But anyway, so we've just we've discussed here other non-musical scene, and we've kind of just started discussing the musical scenes with It's Love I'm After, but all of Judy's other scenes now are musical scenes, except for like a little brief bit of dialogue prior to the numbers. The first one is the Balboa, which is a big production number, as we would often see later on in Judy's MGM films, with all the stars. You know, you've got Betty Grable, you've got Patsy Kelly, Jack Haley, Dixie Dunbar, Stuart Irwin, and then Judy is given the lead vocal, and she pretty much leads the song and is the highlight. So I'll put it out there on your opinions of the Balboa. I think I'll start with you, Connor, because I think you were itching to say something, weren't you?
I was actually, it was to do with It's Love I'm After. I was
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'll hold it till we get to there, if I remember.
Okay.
And I don't forget. Yeah, I don't like the song. I don't like the dance. I don't like anything about it except her performance of it. That's it. That's all. Like, she looks gorgeous in it, and I think you were talking about this, Sarah. Like the way they put her in a dress, but it wasn't a really fluffy frou-frou kind of a thing that she's in the MGM ones later. It's quite simple. It's cute little polka dots, and it's appropriate for maybe a 14, 15 year. I know she was 14, but we'd give the character 14, 15. I'm going off on a tangent here now. Here's my question, talking of her age in the film. If her brother has been invited to sort of have a scholarshipy thing or whatever to get him into the college to play football, and she's supposedly gone along to do the music program, how old is she supposed to be in the film? Would she not have to be an older teenager to go to college, or am I missing something?
Is it maybe a school scholarship attached to it? I don't know.
I don't know. It's just when I looked at it, like, her brother seems so much older than she is. And it kind of makes sense he's gone to play college football, but then she's gone to the same place to do music. So I don't know. Just an observation.
I never even thought of that. That's a really good observation. But anything goes in the movies, right? Nothing has to make sense.
We'll just suspend disbelief.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's my thoughts on the Balboa. Awful dance, awful song. Judy knocks the hell out of it from her performance.
Carly?
I was gonna mention, I read somewhere that the lyrics to that song was changed last minute. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
It's dubbed over in the film, I think, later or something. And if you watch it, it doesn't quite match on the word. I can't remember the word, but maybe you'll tell us.
It's like it's the break a little bit, swing a little bit.
Yes.
And she was originally supposed to swing a little bit, buck a little bit, da da da. But you can imagine how that sounded on the recording and why they had to change it. I'm not sure if you guys have actually heard the recording or not, but it does sound like she's saying a certain 4-letter word. And I remember hearing it for the first time going, what'd she say? Yeah. And I'm like, no. They wouldn't have her saying that.
I think it's just because it's quite quick that it can be heard. I mean, even Adele's Rolling in the Deep, she has a lyric that it's I'll lay your ship bare, but it does sound like another word.
It's not the other word? No, I always thought it was the other word.
Okay, so going back to the Balboa, I quite like the song. Sorry, Con.
Okay.
Not because I think it's a great song, I just enjoy it. Probably because of Judy, but I totally agree on the dance. How they didn't like break the backs or the necks or something doing that dance, I will never know. Then after the Balboa, we next see Judy on the train leaving to Yale, and she's finally given that, well, even though she sang during the dance, she has to sing. But they want the yacht club boys to sing, don't they? And they're like, oh, we haven't got a song. So Judy steps in saying, I've got a song, can I sing it? And this is where she sings the Texas Tornado, which I absolutely love. So again, I'll put it out there. Your opinions on this?
I just wanted to say that I love the way that she's introduced. Well, would it make you happy, sweetie?
Oh, come on.
Mr. Chip, I got a song. Can I sing it?
Well, would it make you happy, honey?
Oh, it sure would.
Then you sing it. Come on. All right, come here,
And I just love that. Again, she's being treated way better in this film than she is anywhere else. And I love too that up until this point, we've probably heard her say, "Y'all want to hear me?" like 3 or 4 times. And you can just see she's just elated that she's been asked to sing. So it's cute.
I love it. The Texas Tornado, again, maybe you could say the song is not the greatest in the world, but I adore it. It's actually one of my favorite early performances of hers ever. I just think her voice is so big, so powerful, so in control, so you can't believe, I know Balboa is the first song, but you really can't believe that the voice singing Texas Tornado is belonging to a 14-year-old.
The state of Texas sincerely expects us getting it all back. Yale's pigskin sack is a crackerjack, but we'll bring it back without fail. The Texas tornado is coming your way, so everyone step aside. Better hide, yeah.
That last she does a growl right towards the end, and then she holds that last Yale thing, and it's just, yeah, I love it. Always have liked Texas Tornado.
Just to attach onto that, sorry.
No, you go on.
Well, I just wanted to say that you brought up a good point, that it's weird to hear a voice like that, such a strong woman's voice coming out of this 14-year-old child, you know? And that's I think a very big reason why MGM didn't know what to do with her, because when here she is singing, and we'll get to this a little bit more when we get into Dear Mr. Gable and Broadway Melody, but it sounds like an adult singing that you forget that that's a child. So when she is singing those love ballads, they're not portrayed as a girl crush, you know what I mean? They're portrayed as, this is how she really felt, you know, like this is a passionate woman. And yeah, anyway, that's what I want to say.
Yeah, I think the feeling was that sometimes it could unnerve a few people that there was like a young child singing like a broken-hearted woman. But going back to Texas Tornado, I noticed she has a tiny little lisp. Does anyone notice that? And I just think it makes it even more adorable. She didn't have it after that, I don't think, when she got to MGM, so I'm assuming that was Roger Eden's.
I think so, and this is a conversation I've actually had with my mum, because whenever we've seen Liza on television in more recent years, Liza has a bit of a lisp. She'd be like, maybe this time, or whatever. But I said it to my mum, I said, if you go way back on Judy, I've heard her have that little kind of lisp, and that I don't know, is that some, like, I've always wondered with Liza in recent years, is that her teeth, or is it just as she's gotten older it's just become more pronounced and it's always been there? Because I think Judy always had it was just worked out of her. I think
I always thought that the lisp was, I didn't remember it in Pigskin Parade, but I had heard that lisp in Strike Up the Band, and particularly just when she speaks. But obviously, like, her teeth caps are quite noticeable in that film, and they're very big. So I thought that that's probably had something to do with it. But then I made the same observation in Pigskin Parade, that, whoa, she's got a lisp as she's singing this. Maybe that's real.
Did you never hear it as an adult from her? I don't think.
No.
Well, even though you've just mentioned it was in Singing in the Rain, I went to say then. Seriously. So, Strike Up the Band, I didn't really notice it after Pigskin Parade.
I'll point, when we get to the Strike Up the Band podcast, I'll point it out.
And I've seen Strike Up the Band like 2 million times. I can't get enough of Mickey and his mum, you see. So I'll watch it purely for that. Sit there with a big bowl of syrup, just watching it, loving it.
Once I point it out, though, you're going to not be able to unhear it, and I might ruin it for you.
Well, I'll be fine.
She actually does it in Over the Rainbow.
Yes, she does.
She does. There's one of the Shawn Wares that you just catch it.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now her front teeth did overlap a little, so I think that could be where that lisp came from, possibly.
Mhm.
It's adorable though. I love
Oh, it's
her.
very cute.
Yeah, I think it's so cute.
Yeah.
Okay, any more on Texas Tornado before we move on? Oh, actually, can I add something? Sorry, any more? Can I add something? We'll talk about the other cast members' reactions in a moment during this Love I'm After. But has anybody watched When You Can Take Your Eyes Off Judy? Has anybody ever made a point to watch the other actors and extras behind her during that song?
I've never. My eyes are just Judy.
Yeah, I made a point of doing it. Just watch the face. I don't think that's acting. They're just completely in awe. I do that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do often watch people's reactions to her now on screen. It's always interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, because I was watching the Johnny One Note literally today, and I went back about 5 times on the bit when she gets up on the table right at the end, because I decided to watch the guy who helps her up from this side, and I only caught today that he holds out the instrument thing, and that's what she kind of grabs onto, and then the other guy comes in from the waist to bring her up.
See, this is why we're so obsessed with her, right? We can just go back and just notice all these different things.
I know, and there's always something new to find, like a new recording or something. I mean, considering she only lived 47 years, and you know she's been gone so long, that's quite amazing. Okay, we're back off track. We're back. Sorry, we're back off topic and track. I went to say tropic, track and topic. So as we discussed before, are we ready to go, by the way?
Yes, sorry.
As we mentioned before, Judy's other number was It's Love I'm After, which she sings on the football field. I think, Carl, you made some observations on the costume of this, as well as absolutely loving her look, didn't you?
It is, again, here we go with foreshadowing. It reminded me so much of Girl Crazy, the I've Got Rhythm Girl Crazy outfit. Yeah.
Anything else on that number?
Just that, again, it's fantastic. She's just belting it out. And I think, Sarah, you wanted to mention about the reaction.
According to Lorna Luft, that when she filmed this, she did the first take and all the actors just burst into spontaneous cheering and applause, so kind of ruined the take, so she had to do it again. But again, like on the Texas Tornado, you can see some of the reactions to you. But like I was saying before, it would make more sense if this was the first one they shot, and then obviously decided to put makeup on her later, because it would make sense for them to then have that reaction, because it'd be like they might have heard it in rehearsals, they might have seen it as like Frances Gum, but would have been the first time seeing her there in person performing, and she's putting all her heart and soul into it as well.
He'll find somebody like you. It's love I'm after. Love I'm after. Love is love I'm after. It may make me rise or make me fall, but it's love I'm after.
I could believe that it was the first thing filmed, because what struck me watching it today was she's a smidgen more raw, I think, I don't mean the vocal, I mean the performance is seems a little bit less polished than Texas Tornado or even Balboa. So it would make sense that this could have been, you know, the first thing filmed. And I also copped that I think it's probably the only time on film her lip sync is off just at the very end. The last note doesn't quite match up. I can't remember, is she a few seconds before her voice or a few seconds after her voice, but it's because she sang along to her own recordings on the set, so her lip syncs were always like ideal. But it's the one and only time I've ever copped her not being completely. Mickey Rooney wasn't always correct.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
No, me neither. But what it is interesting, like when we get to a TV show, because the lip syncing wasn't always great on that, and yet on films it was perfect. Because I think I've heard Barbara Streisand say it as well. Barbara Streisand hates lip syncing.
Yes.
I should imagine Judy was it being the same, since she so needed to get into the emotion and the life of the song. I can understand that's probably why she used to sing along.
Well, with Streisand, that's even with Funny Girl, which was her first film, when they did the climactic song My Man, that was a lip sync from start to finish, but when they watched it back, she insisted that it could be better if they let her sing it live on the set. So the second half of the song is the lip sync, but the first half is live on film.
I love that song.
So do I.
So anything else on It's Love I'm After before we move on?
No, just the little girl with the big voice.
What I did like is after she sings that, they have the football game, and then the song climaxes. The film comes to a climax, and she's kind of, even though she's ninth billed, she's kind of presented as one of the main performers in that little parade, they're doing at the end. In fact, she's the first one they focus on. So I thought that was nice. Judy did have one other song she was going to sing in this, called Hold That Bulldog. There is no actual pre-recording of this, which is interesting because usually all Judy's pre-recordings exist. So I did a little bit of rummaging and researching. A lot of people felt that it possibly didn't get to the pre-recording stage, and that's why it doesn't exist. It was just scripted and then taken out and then performed on the radio. But again, I was speaking to John Fricky with his research, and he said there was a full orchestration made for the film, which was the same one used in the radio broadcast. So he thinks it likely did make it to pre-recording, but it's highly doubtful it made it to being filmed. Now, the reason it was cut, many feel, is because it would have given her 4 numbers in like the second half of the film, and 1, she would have completely overshadowed everything else, even though she did anyway, and 2, it was not deemed necessary that she needed another song. But have you heard Hold That Bulldog?
I actually haven't heard it yet. I forgot to listen to it.
Me neither. I have to say I'm terrible. We need to turn in our Judy cards.
It's okay. I listened to it for the first time the other day, ready for this. I don't know why I haven't listened to it before. And it's not necessary for the film. It's not one of them, why did they cut it? But as always, she gives a great vocal.
When I heard that, read that title, I got Hey Bulldog stuck in my head from the Beatles, and I was just imagining her doing that.
So that concludes Judy's very first feature film. Before we move on, just talk a little bit of the legacy and the reaction and the immediate reaction following it. Judy was singled out as, a big success. There's a story, Margaret Whiten became a friend of Judy. She went to see it with her mother and started crying, saying, she's the best girl singer there is. I'll never sing like that. And as I mentioned, MGM never loaned it out again. And there's also, it's often Stuart Erwin won a Best Actor Oscar, or was he nominated? I did find out the other day and I totally forgot. He was nominated, I think. Did he win it?
For this? He was nominated for this, was he?
Yeah, because I was like
baffled.
I was baffled by it, yeah.
Oh.
Yes, he was nominated. Yeah, there's a lot of there's young Bessie Grable in it, Soft and Slices, as you know, a film with a lot of early stars in. So has anybody got anything to add about its reaction or its legacy?
I just love when Carl Reiner is on Judy's TV show and they're doing the Tea for Two segment, and he brings up that he remembers her singing Balboa as her first picture, and Judy goes, she puffs out her cheeks like this, and she's like, Balboa.
Did we discuss about a reaction to seeing it on screen, seeing herself on screen for the first time? Anybody want to take that bit?
We briefly mentioned it, but it was just, Carly, unless you...
I mean, I can sum it up.
Go first.
Basically, what happened when they saw the showing of the film, she tried to drag her mom out of the theater because she couldn't handle seeing herself with no makeup on, this barefooted hillbilly. She thought her acting was atrocious. She didn't like the way that she didn't like the way she looked, and she thought she was too loud throughout the whole film as well. And it's interesting because Patsy Kelly, who plays Bessie Winters in the film, was really her first friend, because Judy didn't know anybody at Fox, and she was the first person that was, as Judy put it, you were the first person that was nice to me. And Bessie saw her through all of those insecurities and even opened up her own dressing room for her so that Judy could use her dressing room to make her feel a little bit more comfortable. And so it's worth noting that, Patsy did really help her through filming that. But yeah, she wasn't terribly thrilled with the way that she looked on film. Now, of course, obviously we now think that that's malarkey because she's just gorgeous, but she's too hard on herself.
So we're all in agreement then, and I said that I've only really noted this recently. We're all in agreement that Fox, despite not being as good a studio when it came to musicals, actually handled Judy's image and presentation a lot better than MGM.
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we've discussed how she was presented really well, her image and the impact she made. But when she came back to MGM, they still weren't quite sure what to do with her. So she was written into the next Broadway Melody film. These are two previous, Broadway Melody in 1929 and Broadway Melody in 1936, the latter which has featured Robert Taylor and Eleanor Powell, who would also be in this one. They didn't really know because she looked like a kid and she sang like a woman. And instead of just letting her be a teenager like Fox did, they presented her more as kind of like childlike. Now, somewhere in between, Clark Gable had a birthday, and she'd sang happy birthday to you on Wednesday. Oh my God.
I'm leaving that in.
I've just had this image of Judy just blowing everyone away in this film singing happy birthday to a photo of Clark Gable. Sorry, my nails need doing as well.
All I'm thinking of is Marilyn Monroe.
Don't imagine if they'd have written that into her next film.
Oh God.
So she sang "Dear Mr. Gable, You Made Me Love You" to Clark Gable on the set of Parnell, and it went down so well that it was written into Broadway Melody of 1938, but we will get to that number shortly. So basically, the plot of Broadway Melody of 1938 is a backstage musical, and it's a load of nonsense. Sorry if I offend anyone with that. Basically, Robert Taylor is wanting to produce a show, and someone called him and Jay Whipple, who have a company called, what's it called? Suck It Whipples, or what's it called? It's got
Something
a funny name.
I can't remember.
Yeah, and they're putting money into his show. Then there's a bit of a subplot with the horse. It opens with Sonny and what's Buddy Ebsen's name? I had that the other day as well. I had it all written down. Right, they're in the Barbers anyway, and they tell
Peter.
someone,
Peter
Peter,
Trott.
that's it. They're with Sonny and George, the Barbers, and it opens with a big like song while they're, you know, getting shaves and everything. And they convince them to put money on a horse, but they don't actually put the money on, and it wins, and then they're chasing them all through the film. And then the stable hands looking after this horse called Stargazer, and then Ella Powell turns up, who's known the horse since she was tiny. They find her on the train, on the carriage, the cart, and she tap dances with them, which is a number I actually really like, by the way. And then Robert Walker comes in and finds it, and he wants to put it in his show, and they fall in love, but the wife of Mr. Whipple doesn't want her in it, so they take the funds away. So then she buys Stargazer, she lends the money to buy him, and then the two Barbers, Sonny and Nikki, not Sonny, Nikki and George, they convince them to put money into it, and Stargazer wins, and they put money in the show, and then Eleanor Powell stars in the show, and then there's some ridiculous thing about that the horse will only jump if this Nikki is singing opera. Right, I won't go into it because we've had our rants for the day, but on the actual steeplechase, he's not doing anything until he like drags him up onto this microphone in the middle. I don't know how they got up there. He takes over the microphone, starts singing. How the horse hears that running around this track, I don't know, but that's how the horse wins. Before I have a few more rants, do you have anything to say about the film overall, the plot, and any other non-Judy moments? I do have more to say, but I'll hand it over to you.
Well, I quite liked it. I'll be honest, I actually have never seen the film. I had never seen the film from start to finish before. I had only really watched Judy's parts, and I quite liked it. I liked Pigskin Parade a little bit more. I thought it had a better plot. It was way funnier, but I thoroughly enjoyed Broadway Melody of 1938. One observation that I did make is Buddy Ebsen. Do you guys know the actor Ansel Elgort? No, he played in The Fault in Our Stars, Baby Driver.
Oh, I love Baby Driver. Who's he playing though?
He plays Baby.
Yeah, I know him.
Buddy Ebsen looks a lot like him, or rather the other way around, like just young. Anyway, I'll show you guys a comparison after. But I just kept seeing Baby in in Buddy Ebsen. What else was I gonna say? Oh, it was also really cool seeing George Murphy as well. I really like him as an actor too. Of course, he's with Judy and For Me and My Gal and Little Nellie Kelly, and he's quite a sweetie too. I like his smile. He smiles with his eyes. That smiles. I can't do it, but I don't have anything substantial to say. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'll waffle in a minute, Connor.
To this day, and again, I sort of hate to admit this, I have not seen Broadway Melody of 1938 in full. I have the DVD of it. I've only ever skipped to Judy's parts because I just kind of wasn't really particularly interested in it, and I had planned to watch it for this, but as I mentioned, I was in the middle of moving the last few days, so time just got away from me. So I've not actually seen it, but in full. But the only non-Judy bit I can talk about, because I have watched this bit, is I do love Sophie Tucker in this, and she sings Some of These Days, which is her signature song in the movie, and that's a lovely, I guess, link to kind of, I suppose people often say how Judy and Barbara on her television show was sort of the passing of the torch in one way, and I think this was almost Judy's bridging the gap between Sophie Tucker's era and coming into Judy's era, and then it went to Barbara, and then possibly Lady Gaga now, I don't know, but yeah, so I'm waffling on here now because I'm trying to fill time and pretend I know what I'm talking about.
You do.
I love that. That's such a good observation.
There is a link there. Sorry. No, you go. I
wanted to say one more thing that I couldn't really wrap my head around was the sneezing man. Like, I get that this film is to showcase other people's talent. Like it's basically a talent show for MGM. But what the hell was up with the sneezing guy? Like that scene went on for like 4 or 5 more minutes longer than it needed to.
I'll talk about that in a minute. Later on, I'm going to discuss some of Judy's deleted numbers, and one was your Broadway and my Broadway, or your Broadway and mine, and Sophie does sing it as well in the show, and that's another good example of sort of like passing the torch. There's a lot about this film that I like. Oz references again with the original Tin Man. Well, actually, possibly the original Scarecrow, if you go back even further, with Buddy Ebsen, because he was originally wanted as the Scarecrow, and also Uncle Henry is in it as the manager of the stables. There's a lot I like Sophie Tucker as well. I like George Murphy, and I don't... Robert Taylor is very handsome. I don't like Eleanor Powell as an actress, but I love her as a tap dancer. So I really love her numbers, especially following my footsteps with George Murphy and Buddy Ebsen. I do find Buddy Ebsen really amusing, the way he moves. The sneezing man, me and my mum used to watch that when I was a kid, Carly, just that scene, and just laugh hysterically just because it was just so ridiculous. I think that's just a complete throwback to vaudeville, that, isn't it, when they just have these strange acts. But again, the boarding house is a talent boarding house, for performers, so they just have the most random people.
I actually really like the sort of, I don't know, is he the receptionist or what is he? But your man in the casting office, the very British sort of guy. I just think that's actually a very funny little part.
I love him. I love him.
He's in Babes in Arms, isn't he, playing the exact same character?
Yeah. I was just going to tack on to what Connor said. Him and Judy just seem to really enjoy working together. You can actually see Judy cracking up at the very near the end of her scene with him. Sarah, you were saying that you thought that it was her character, like that was part of her character. It seemed to me like it was very reminiscent of the way that she almost cracks up in The Wizard of Oz. That that cheeky holding her mouth, and it's really quite cute. You can see how hilarious they thought each other were.
But she was known to get the giggles, wasn't she?
Yeah, and she really does kind of go, like, her whole body kind of goes into it too. So I'm pretty sure she was laughing for real.
Luckily, that never happens to me on the podcast.
No, never.
She says it in the Valley of the Dolls costume tests, the one of the ones with the sound, and she just starts giggling. And she goes, "Oh, pardon me, I do get the giggles." I
know, I love that. Yeah,
it's always portrayed as such another, like, whatever type of tragedy event or whatever, in her life, that participation in that film. But like, she was laughing and giggling in the costume tests. So I don't know.
My favorite outtake soundbite is from A Star Is Born, when she starts howling, laughing
definitely.
in the recording booth. Anybody knows what I'm talking about. But oh my gosh, I could make that my ringtone.
Can I ask a question? Because I know we're going off topic, so apologies. But again, I think I'm missing the joke somewhere along the way. She's got that roar of a giggle. So like, she starts to sing and then she starts just bursting out laughing or whatever. And then you hear, I guess, one of the studio technicians or something says to her, I think he says, "Have you got a broom in there?"
The Wizard of Oz, the Wicked Witch. She's cackling, laughing. I think that's a throwback to The Wizard of Oz.
Getcha.
Anyway.
Sorry. Anyway.
Right.
Yes.
No, it's okay. I was just saying that. I like Eleanor Powell's tap dancing, but I'm gonna have a rant again now. I've said what I do like about the film. Okay, Connor, you didn't watch it. I don't know whether you agree or disagree, Carly, but I found the romantic chemistry between Eleanor Powell and Robert Taylor absolutely non-existent, and I actually cringed at moments where they're rehearsing lines, and the line is supposed to be, "I love you, really I do." I mean, come on, it's not really a genius writer, is it, coming up with that? And we're like, "Oh, let's rehearse it together, say it like you really mean it." And they're like, I love you with all my heart, really I do. And this goes on for I don't know how long. And I was just under the covers cringing as I was watching it. Am I the only, I know they could be a bit cringy back then, but am I the only one who sort of found that?
Well, I like Robert Taylor a lot, and
Same.
I was very lost in him in this film because, oh my God, he has such a dreamboat. But I found that she had a little bit more chemistry, I think, with George Murphy. Like their dance together was a little bit more profound, I guess. So yeah, I do agree with you there.
Yeah, she did. She was good with George Murphy, and as he says, he was always the schnook who didn't get the girl.
Poor chap.
Anyway, so let's move on to Judy then. We first hear Judy before we see her. Judy can be heard over the credits singing Yours and Mine. And I remember watching this as a little girl. It was one of the early Judy films I saw as well. And being so excited when I heard, being so shocked to see how low down she was in the credits, because I'd only ever known her as the big star up until that point. But then just being so excited when I heard her voice, and she does like sing a really, really lovely version over the credits of Yours and Mine. Do you agree?
Mm.
Of
She's
course.
Like a Bond girl, like Shirley Bassey singing over the title credits.
Yeah, it's so much nicer than the version that Eleanor Powell, and well, it's not Eleanor Powell's voice, I don't think, and Robert Taylor sing in the show. But then we first see her. She comes into a casting office with the man who we've just been talking about. I forgot his name, and she's with her mum, Sophie Tucker. And she first introduced, and she comes in this like little trench coat, whatever it is, and she's carrying a big giant lollipop. And there's nothing wrong with adult. I quite like a lollipop, or I don't know whether you call something different in Canada, Carly.
No, lollipop or
lollipop. I quite am happy to have a little lollipop now and again, if I want to concentrate, but I don't stand there like this. I've just knocked my microphone and like it, like a big kid.
That was exactly what I was going to say earlier when we were comparing it.
Well, I'm going to pass it over to you then, Connor.
Okay. Yeah, because she's in this like baby doll sort of collardy thing and almost a bonnet. I can't think of anything else but that. And then this stupid lollipop, you're dead right, this stupid lollipop. And she's like, almost this attitude, of like a little bit of the bratty child kind of a thing. Now, I'm that's not anything against Judy, because she's got a very funny scene or a very funny line, I think, when she says,
the Claytons are a bunch of hams. I'm sorry, Ma, it slipped out.
Like, that was funny, but it's like MGM made her sort of be this, I don't know, like 12-year-old, 11-year-old, what, 12 or 11-year-old with this lolly, I don't know.
I know, I didn't even, when I was 12, I didn't like act or dress like that. I was still a kid. I acted like an 11, 12-year-old kid who happened to like old movies, so I was probably a little bit older, but they just infantilized her.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like well, there's a lot of things I could say that I probably shouldn't, but so I won't. But yeah, that's exactly what they did.
It's bizarre. It's really bizarre the way they would try to keep her a child.
It's like they were trying to make her Shirley Temple.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what they were trying to do. But she was very grown out of that.
But other like teenage actresses of the time, didn't like play roles like that. Like Anne Rutherford, obviously she's a bit older, Lana Turner, Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney wasn't a teenage actress, was he? That's true.
Like, there's a lot of examples, of older people playing teenagers. I mean, it's quite topical at the moment because of Ben Platt in the movie of Dear Evan Hansen, and he is 27 or 28, and he's in the movie and he's playing a high schooler. And there was a lot of talk about the way Hollywood casts older people in younger roles. And there's a lot of people that, like Glee, I'm thinking of as well. They were always a lot older, or they were a lot older than they portrayed on screen. So, like, in one sense, fine if they were wanting her to portray a little bit younger than she was, but not a sort of a baby doll either.
Yeah. And she herself was already a teenager. So why couldn't they let her play her own age in a role that she's supposed to be her own age? Like,
they never did they?
No.
I think Babes in Arms was the first MGM film where she played her own age.
Yeah.
You can understand it for Dorothy, the Wizard of Oz. That's iconic, but
no, I mean, even Meet Me in St. Louis, she's 21 in that, and Esther Smith is about 17. You know, there is a big difference between a 17-year-old and a 21-year-old.
Yes, there is.
But it's not completely abnormal for a 21-year-old to play a 17-year-old, is there? But anyway, that's Judy's first scene, and during this scene, she sings Everybody Sing. So again, I'm just going to put that out there to you, what you think of her first scene in general and the song Everybody Sing.
Well, I mean, it's... We've already kind of touched a lot on that scene about how funny she is and just how hammy she is. And I think I remember reading in John's book here that she didn't like her opening scene because she didn't like being precocious. But no, it's cute. It's very fun, and of course, Everybody Sing, that's an iconic song. Anytime I hear the title Everybody Sing for her film, I have that going through my head. And yeah, and you're showcased with that robust Garland voice right there, and yet again, here she is being portrayed as a child, and this roaring voice comes out of her.
That is the interesting thing with that, because she's got, you know, we've gone on about the lollipop, but she's got this very juvenile presentation, and then she's out with this like swinging Red Hot Mama sort of voice, and you're like, okay.
Everybody sing, let the sound of your voice turn winter to spring. Everybody's gay, everybody's gay. Oh, say, can't you hear the orchestra play? Everybody sing, everybody start. Can't go wrong with a song in your heart. Everybody sing, get into the swing, get happy, everybody sing. Yeah, everybody sing, come on now. Everybody sing, let the sound of your voice turn the winter to spring. Everybody's gay, hey, 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 everybody's gay. Oh, say, can you hear?
Yeah, because the voice would make more sense coming out of a teenager.
Yeah.
Not a kid sucking a lollipop.
Yeah.
But it makes me laugh the way this film's called Broadway Melody in 1938, but it was, you know, released in 1937. And then she's got a song in it called Everybody Sing, but then she went on to make a film called Everybody Sing that doesn't have the song in it.
Yeah. I remember hearing her Decca version of Everybody Sing on a CD compilation, and then, you know, seeing her filmography or whatever, and I was convinced for years that the song Everybody Sing was in the film Everybody Sing.
That's what I thought too, actually.
Yeah.
I saw Everybody Sing before I saw this one. And it was before I had any Decca recordings. They were two early films I saw when I was just a kid. So I didn't really have that confusion. Oh, there's one I do love, the little growl she does near the end of this song. Yeah.
Yes.
Is that the before you have your buttered toast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Following this, Judy's in a brief scene. She doesn't really have any dialogue, where Robert Taylor brings Eleanor Powell to her mum's boarding house for a room, and they're all the performers are all round the table, and they all surround Robert Taylor when they find out who he is. There's a scene where a load of dogs like run on the table, which is, I mean, I love animals, but it's a bit gross. And this has always baffled me. I don't know whether anybody else has noticed. There's a famous photo of Judy with a load of dogs with the caption, 1938 auditioning dogs for Toto. But if you look, she's in the exact same costume with the exact same dogs as in this scene in Broadway Melody. So I don't know whether it was a mistake or whether it was from this film, but MGM did sort of release it as a publicity photo later on in that way, you know, to promote us. I don't know whether you have anything about that. whether you've even noticed it.
I noticed it. As soon as those dogs came in, and you can see the dress that she's wearing, it's the same dress. It was very clearly taken on that set. So I think it was likely a publicity concoction from MGM.
Probably.
Because wasn't Toto in the original story, wasn't he a Cairn Terrier? Like in the illustrations?
Yeah, he was, wasn't he?
I think so.
Yeah.
So I never understood why they'd be.
I don't think she ever auditioned dogs for Toto, did she?
No, I don't think so.
Sit, stand, jump up. That's good. Not
She's not
Judy, she
qualified for
wouldn't
that.
audition them anyway.
Yeah.
But no, because the first time I saw that photo online, it was like, oh, yeah, Broadway Melody, and then it started getting passed around. She's auditioning dogs, and like that was the official caption. And I was like, oh, I've missed something here. And even she looks like 1937 Judy. She looks too young to be like working in Oz pre-production. So that was just a little observation. Have you seen this scene? I know you've said you've watched Judy's scenes, Con. Have you actually seen this one?
Yeah, no, I have. I really do think I think I'm agreeing with the consensus. I'd say it was just MGM had a photo of her with a load of dogs, and we're like, oh yeah, she's auditioning dogs to play Toto in The Wizard of Oz. No, she wasn't. Like it's you know, like as you said, why would she even be auditioning the dogs? Like the only thing I could think of is possibly when Terry, who played Toto, was selected, there may have been an encounter between the two to make sure that they were going to be fine together for filming, possibly. But like she wouldn't have picked the dog or auditioned the dog.
But MGM were always putting out strange copy, weren't they? You know, they just made a life story up. Yeah, they mentioned they wanted to be a nurse in one, and even Judy herself said she'd read this stuff like thinking, is that really me in these articles?
I love that quote. Can I actually add one more thing about that scene before we move on?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's another example of them sort of making her appear juvenile, is if you're watching her at the dinner table, she's like slunched back in her seat, chewing with her mouth open, like playing with her fingers, just looking very much, again, like a child. And it's kind of hard to see her because obviously she's not really the focal point of the scene. But if you look at what she's doing, yeah, she's, you know, chewing with her mouth open. Like, they're really making her a kid here.
It's crazy.
And speaking of kids, moving into the most famous number in the film, not just Judy's most famous, it's the most famous, memorable number in the whole film, is Dear Mr. Gable, You Made Me Love You. And the scene which just precedes, she's lying in bed and she kisses a photo of Clark Gable, which teenagers do that. Well, I don't think they kiss them and put them under the cover when the mum runs in. When I had crushes as a teenager, I didn't have to hide them from my mum. How cruel is a mum to taking the photo, ripping it up, telling me she can't have heroes? But this line gets me. First it was Donald Duck. Now it's Clark Gable you're crazy about. What's that? Come on, someone please tell me what's that.
Does she have a crush on a duck?
Unless the only thing I could think of is that it's again like trying to portray her as young, and like Carly, you'll know kids go through their little phases where there's an obsession for a while on such and such a thing, and then it moves on to something else, unless that's what it's meant to be.
It is, and I don't know whether it's like showing that she is growing up a little bit, so she's graduated from, a cartoon to a real actor. But I just think it's another thing that kind of infantilizes it. I can't talk. Just first it's Donald Duck, now it's Clark Gable. It couldn't have been like first it was Jackie Cooper, now it's Clark Gable or something like that. Mention another child star.
And it always reminds me of it's only in the Decca version of In Between, isn't it? When she's like, oh, we only go to Mickey Mouse, I'm not allowed Clark Gable.
Yeah.
No, it's in the film.
Is it in the film as well? Okay.
Yeah. There's a rant ready for Love Fans Andy Hardy, although I'm sure Carly's got a few rants there. So anyway, Judy's character, Betty Clayton, disobeys the mum, and then she gets out a scrapbook and starts writing to Clark Gable, and she doesn't sing happy birthday.
No.
Okay. She sings. Does anybody want to take this? What does she sing?
Dear Mr. Gable.
Dear Mr. Gable, I am writing this to you, and I hope that you will read it so you'll know. My heart beats like a hammer, and I stutter and I stammer every time I see you at the picture show.
And what do we have to say about that?
Well, I already kind of touched on it a little bit when we were talking about that voice of hers, that again, like it's hard to stay in the illusion that she's a teenager or child with a little crush, with a little schoolgirl crush, because her voice is just, it's so strong, it is so womanly, it's so passionate that if you were to shut your eyes, you'd be thinking this was an adult woman truly in love with Clark Gable.
I think the opening section and the middle section, so the Dear Mr. Gable bit and then the spoken piece, does come across as a bit juvenile, because that's the intention of it. But
yeah,
the singing piece really is, it is a woman's voice there, you know. And especially my favorite thing ever is the transition to that final "I don't care what happens, let the whole world stop." I just think the way that voice just comes out is incredible.
Yeah,
I love when you're talking about a song, I can see you like using imagery to get to the notes, Connor.
Oh.
You kind of go down upscales and things. But you Made Me Love You is like iconic now. She used it for the rest of her career. Yeah, it was the highlight of the film, so much so that Judy pretty much ran away with the film. She would have ran away with it more if one of her other numbers had stayed in, which I'll discuss in a minute. But it's worth noting that Judy appeared 7th in the credits after the initial release in the the ad copy and everything. She was bumped up to 3rd billing. That's how important she kind of come. And you can see there's a few in World's Greatest Entertainer book, John Fricke's book. There's a few posters there where you can see it. So we've discussed the importance of You Made Me Love You. Judy has one other number in the final film.
Can I pop in for 1 second just on You Made Me Love You? So sorry.
It's okay.
I find it incredible that Judy's second outing in a feature film, I'm not counting her shorts, but her second outing in a film, her first MGM film, she knocks it out of the park and gets herself an iconic number in Dear Mr. Gable, You Made Me Love You. You know, and that is going to be part of her concerts for the rest of her life. I don't think there's a concert she ever did where she didn't sing You Made Me Love You.
And how many other singers have sang it, and you associate it with Judy?
Yeah.
Nearly every other singer sang it.
Yeah.
People might disagree with me, obviously, if they prefer certain other singers. But I remember once I was watching my mum. She's dead now. My mum's old friend Mary. She was a character. She liked to drink a bit much, but I had a soft spot for her. She used to come up to my mum's and torment us. And I was watching I'm digressing again, watching Love Me or Leave Me, with Doris Day, which I do like, and I do like Doris Day. Yeah. She was singing You Made Me Love You, and I really, really like Doris Day's voice. I think she's underrated. But I just went, she doesn't sing it like Judy, and she loved Doris Day, Mary, and she flipped her lid. Judy couldn't sing like her. I was just saying I prefer her version I prefer Judy's version to hers. And Judy could sing like different voices, apples and oranges. Right, anyway, she has another number in the final completed film. It was a tap number with Buddy Ebsen, Wizard of Oz reference. And I think this is a really, really, really cute little dance. What do you think about it? But again, she's in frills.
She is. I was just about to say it. She's in a frilly little thing, but the dance is very, very good. It's very cute. And even at that age, I think we might have mentioned it before along the way, even though she's not remembered per se as a dancer, she could hold a step with anybody, even at that age. That's her first dance number really on film outside of the Gum Sisters. And like, you can't take your eyes off her.
She was matching him step for step.
Definitely. I can't sing, as I often say, but not to blow my own trumpet, I am quite a good little tap dancer. It was always been my strongest from when I used to dance, and it stuck with me all these years. So I always watch people's feet when they're tap dancing, and she's got nice clean little taps going on there, nice little good ankle action. Because we were talking in the Mickey Judy podcast when Mickey said at that point she was no dancer, and I was thinking, yeah, he's definitely made this story up. Because, you know, she was dancing like that.
She was dancing like that at 7 years old. Like...
But saying that though, I do watch Eleanor Powell's taps during this. I don't like her from here up because she's a bit too grinny. Same with Ann Miller. I love Ann Miller as a dancer, but I don't like this cheesy grin. But the pair of them, I can't keep my eyes off their feet when they're tapping away.
So interesting in well, I assume it was all movies of that time, and maybe it still is today, but certainly all those MGM tap dance numbers, they dubbed in the taps later.
They did. And I know Gene Kelly used to do his own and his partners if they weren't a dancer. I'm sure you know that, Carly.
Yep.
You probably knew it more before I knew it. But I was always fascinated by the sounds of the taps in them old films, because they don't sound the same as like how we sound, you know, when we go tap dancing on the stage. It's one of my favourite sounds. It just always fascinated me. But now we know it's because it was obviously dubbed.
The closest I ever got to it outside of that era was it was myself and my mum were in New York, and we went to see White Christmas on Broadway. And there was a number in that where they tap danced on top of a piano. And I can't actually remember the number, isn't that terrible? But anyway, it was literally, we both said at intermission, it was like watching an MGM movie in real life.
Wow.
You are right. The sound of the taps was probably a bit different, but it was the closest, you know, to seeing it really happening, I felt.
And there's a difference between American tap dancing and English. I much prefer the American way. They're much more close into the grounds. I think more engaged in the African roots of it, like especially if you watch Bill Bojangles. In England, it's all very like upright, and you've got, you know, your big, even though you've got to still have quite quick, intricate ankle action. You do a time step, it's much bigger. But I love that American style, which is a lot more into the ground. Sorry, I'm digressing again. So, Carly, did you have anything to say about this little tap number?
No, not really. Just that it's fantastic, and it's great to see what it might have looked like with Dorothy and the Tin Man with Buddy Ebsen. I mean, nobody will come close to Jack Haley as the Tin Man, but it's an interesting little glimpse at what might have been.
Was anyone else hearing the Tin Man's voice when they were watching Pigskin Parade?
Yes.
Yeah. I love it. There's that story on the making of a movie classic, the 50th anniversary, where he talks about how he'd read the stories to his kids. And that's the voice he took. When I was a kid, the Tin Man was my favourite, you know, so Free Friends, because I loved his voice. I used to because everyone loved either the Scarecrow or the Lion, but I just found him really soothing.
I was the same way, the same exact way. Jack Haley, his voice, If I Only Had a Heart, was just, it's so easy to get lost into. His voice was so soothing.
Judy's tap number is in the big show at the end. That's the only number that she's got in it. The show and the film finishes with them all on stage, including Judy, and the horse is on stage as well, poor horse. And then Eleanor Powell and Robert Taylor just kiss around them. But Judy did have 2 numbers deleted from this, and I'm going to do them in reverse order now because it fits in better. One of them was Your Broadway and Mine, and I knew it was meant to be part of this show, but I found out today that Judy was supposed to open this part of the film, open the show with this number. Have you heard it, the recording?
I love it. I absolutely love this.
Isn't it just Have you heard it, Carly? Go and listen to it. It is, if she'd have had this song as well, and John Fricke said this to me today, she would have walked away with the film even more than she already did, and I think they might have been aware of that, so they had to like tone her down a bit. And how important would that have been that she was like opening the final show? And we've got some pictures, or one picture left of it, and we've got the recording. But unfortunately, this is one of the moments where I really wish the footage still existed.
So that was one of the things that I observed at the end of Broadway Melody. I thought, what? They got Judy to do a tap dance number in the finale of the film. They didn't have her sing. And then I thought, well, maybe because she got her showcase with Dear Mr. Gable, but no, you don't do a finale in a show and not have Judy sing. It doesn't make sense.
And the other thing is as well is that have you watched the whole show, Connor? Because I know you said you'd only really watched Judy's part. Have you watched the whole show?
No, I think I've only seen Judy's parts.
It's not worth it. It's boring.
Lacking, yeah.
It opens with thought she was coming with me then. A really slow kind of semi-ballroom number with Eleanor Powell, which isn't her forte at all anyway. So she wasn't being showcased at her best, and she's doing this with George Murphy. They're both better, you know. They're like
Buffers.
You know, what are they called? Please cut this out of me just sitting here going like this. Go with the outtakes. Upbeat, you know, tap numbers. But it just opens with this really slow number, and that is to a slowed down version of Your Broadway and Mine, and then it moves into Sophie Tucker singing her version of Your Broadway and Mine. It would have made so much more sense to have Judy opening up with a bang, belting it out, then moving into the number, then Sophie Tucker.
The other thing that's hilarious about the finale, sorry Sarah to cut across you, is the little sign in the background that says Sophie Tucker.
Yeah.
I noticed that too.
She's not playing herself in the film.
No, but I love that though.
Yeah.
But like you said about passing the torch, it would have been the perfect passing of the torch as well.
100%.
I do.
That song is underrated actually as well. I think it's a fantastic song that I can just envisage it sort of being done in sort of a cabaret show in New York, or even in a kind of a Broadway review or something like that. You know, it's actually a very good song. It reminds me of that one Judy sang it as well in Presenting Lily Mars, and Gene Kelly did it in Singing in the Rain.
Broadway Rhythm.
That's it. It kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, me too.
I love that song.
And she sang it on a first radio appearance as well, didn't she?
Everybody dance. Yeah.
That's what I observed. And then at the end in the finale bit, which I much prefer, where they're dancing in the suits, and Eleanor Powell does a tap dance to an upbeat version of Eleanor Powell. Sorry.
I thought it was a weird costume choice for her though. Like to showcase, I don't know, it's too baggy on her for a dance. Yeah,
it's not a great costume.
No.
But when was Got a Pair of New Shoes written? Was that written especially for Thoroughbreds Don't Cry, or was it an older song?
No, it was an older one. It appears somewhere else, I think.
The chorus men randomly start singing Got a Pair of New Shoes. Go back and watch it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
She did have another number cut. It was a reprise of Yours and Mine, which she was to sing Two Kids on the Roof. This photo exists of it, and the audio exists of it. You know, the boarding house, the actors' boarding house. So yeah, she was to sing it to kids up on the roof. I think I might be wrong. I think she was in the same costume as at the dinner table in the photo, but I might be wrong. So don't quote me on that. I listened to this the other day, and I don't like this version as much as the version over the credits. The outtake, it's really strange. She's singing to the picture shows her singing to these kids, unless I've seen it wrong, or it moves on to adults. But it's got these like kind of female soprano like harmonies in the background. Do you remember them, Connor?
Oh yes, yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so thank you as always for watching. Thank you to Connor and Carly. Next time we will be discussing the prospect of Judy being a classic beauty, which she wasn't always recognised as. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and like our videos and ring that bell so you don't miss any of our future
Videos.
Podcast.
content.
There we go.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.